You were told that success means fitting in, that to belong, you must blend in, that relevance comes from doing what everyone else is doing, thinking what everyone else thinks, and chasing what everyone else chases. But that's the great lie of our time. In an age obsessed with algorithms and trends, following the crowd doesn't make you relevant, it makes you invisible. Most men today are caught in a silent storm. They scroll endlessly through feeds filled with people they don't know, chasing approval from faces they'll never meet. They work in jobs that drain them, not because they love them, but because everyone said they should. They live according to blueprints written by strangers. The result? A generation of men who are connected to everything, yet rooted in nothing. It's a strange kind of loneliness. You wake up, check your phone, see what the world is doing, and instantly feel behind. Everyone seems to be running faster, achieving more, smiling wider. You start to believe that relevance is a race, that if you slow down or take a different path, you'll vanish. But deep down, you know this isn't the truth. You can feel the fatigue in your bones. You can sense that chasing what everyone else chases only leads to noise, not meaning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The Stoics understood something that we've forgotten. Courage is not about fighting others. It's about standing apart when everyone else follows the easy road. They believe that true strength lies in self-command and refusing to be moved by the winds of popularity. Today, the winds are stronger than ever. Every opinion feels like it must be broadcast. Every trend feels like it must be joined. But here's the truth. Following the crowd might give you comfort, but it will never give you clarity. The more you mimic others, the further you drift from yourself. Relevance is not found in the noise. It's built in the silence of authenticity. We mistake visibility for value. We think being seen means being significant. But what if being unseen, working in the shadows, refining your craft, thinking differently, is the real path to staying relevant? The men who change the world don't shout the loudest. They move quietly, deliberately, while the crowd burns its energy on imitation. They trust their inner compass more than the collective applause. So what does it mean to stop following the crowd? It means you stop asking, "What are they doing?" and start asking, "What do I believe in?" It means trading speed for direction. It means being willing to look foolish for a while, knowing that true innovation always starts as misunderstanding. You must build a foundation strong enough to withstand solitude, because that's where your originality is born. Here's an exercise: unplug for one day. No scrolling, no checking what's trending. Instead, think. Sit with your own thoughts until the noise fades. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? And what am I pretending to like because everyone else does? You'll be surprised at how much of your identity has been shaped by imitation. Relevance begins when you reclaim your voice from the crowd. The future doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to the most grounded. Technology changes, trends shift, but the man who knows who he is, who acts from conviction instead of consensus, will always find his place. He adapts, but never abandons himself. That's what it means to thrive in change. To bend, but not break. To evolve, but not dissolve. So stop chasing relevance. Build it. Build it through mastery, through silence, through focus. Build it by saying no when others say yes, and yes when your gut demands it. Don't follow the crowd, outlast it. The men who dare to stand alone today become the voices others follow tomorrow. And when the world feels loud and chaotic, when you feel pressure to conform, remember this: relevance isn't about being noticed. It's about being needed. And the world doesn't need another copy, it needs the original you. As the music swells, take a breath and let this settle in. To stay relevant, stop following the crowd. The crowd is temporary. Trends fade. But the man who listens to his inner truth, who dares to be different, to think deeply, to act deliberately, will always rise above the noise. That's not rebellion. That's leadership. That's relevance. Every man reaches a point where he feels like he's drowning in the noise. Everyone is talking, posting, building, selling, and somehow even when you're doing all the same things, you still feel behind. You tell yourself you're chasing growth, but deep down, you're chasing approval. You've mistaken validation for vision. That's the quiet trap of the modern age. You open your phone, and within seconds, you're reminded of where you should be. The entrepreneur your age who already made it. The guy with perfect abs and a life that seems effortless. The influencer whose every post gets 1,000 likes. You see their highlight reels and wonder, what am I doing wrong? But that's the poison, comparison disguised as motivation. And the more you consume it, the more it consumes you. You see, most men don't realize that following the crowd doesn't look like mindless conformity anymore. It looks like staying updated. It looks like keeping up. But keeping up is just a slower form of surrender. Every time you mimic what's popular instead of what's meaningful, you trade a piece of your soul for the illusion of relevance. And soon you can't tell where the world ends and where you begin. In ancient Japan, the samurai lived by a code, Bushido, the way of the warrior. One of its principles was rectitude, the courage to do what is right, not what is easy or expected. The samurai was taught to trust his judgment even in solitude, to stand firm even when surrounded by doubt. Their discipline wasn't for show. It was for alignment, to ensure their actions reflected their deepest values, not the noise of the world. In our modern battlefield of algorithms and opinions, rectitude looks like discernment. It means filtering what enters your mind as carefully as a warrior sharpens his blade. It's knowing when to consume and when to create, when to listen and when to retreat into silence. It's realizing that your attention is your greatest currency, and if you spend it following the crowd, you'll wake up bankrupt of purpose. Here's the truth. Relevance doesn't come from visibility, it comes from vitality. You stay relevant by staying alive inside, by being curious, by experimenting, by evolving. But the crowd? It moves in loops. It celebrates repetition, not reinvention. It rewards the familiar, not the fearless. So if you follow it, you become predictable, and predictability is the death of relevance. So, how do you break free? Start by auditing your influences. Who are you really following? Who are you letting shape your thoughts, your goals, your definition of success? Most men think they're thinking for themselves, but they're not. They're just echoing the ideas of those with the loudest microphones. You need to starve the noise and feed your mind with things that make you uncomfortable, that stretch your understanding, that remind you of your individuality. Take 1 hour this week to study something completely unrelated to your field, philosophy, art, science, history. Stretch beyond the algorithm's cage. That hour might be the most relevant thing you do all week. Because every new perspective you absorb makes you harder to replace, harder to predict, harder to ignore. The crowd copies, the innovator connects. And when you start to drift into comparison, when you feel that sting of inadequacy after seeing someone else's success, stop. Breathe. Remind yourself, their path isn't mine. Your story unfolds on its own timeline. You're not late. You're just distracted. And the man who masters his focus eventually outruns those who sprint blindly. Seneca once said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." The crowd is that unfocused wind, constantly shifting, always restless. You cannot find direction by chasing it. You find it by choosing your own port, your own destination, and adjusting your sails accordingly. That's how relevance is sustained, by clarity, not chaos. Here's your exercise. Write down your 3 core values, not what sounds good, but what feels right. Then ask yourself, does the way I live reflect these values or the crowd's expectations? You'll find that many of your habits, opinions, even dreams were borrowed. And when you start cutting them away, something incredible happens. You start hearing your own voice again. Remember, solitude isn't loneliness. It's alignment. Every great creator, warrior, or philosopher in history understood this. They withdrew from the crowd, not to escape it, but to rise above it. They didn't reject society. They redefined it. You must do the same. Be the man who builds while others mimic, who questions while others follow, who leads quietly until the world catches up. And when the day feels heavy, when you feel the pressure to conform, remember, it's better to walk your own path slowly than run someone else's race to nowhere. Relevance built on imitation fades fast. But relevance built on authenticity endures beyond trends, beyond time. So step back, tune in, listen, not to the noise of the crowd, but to the whisper within. That's where your direction lives. That's where your future waits. Because the man who stops following doesn't fall behind, he finally starts moving forward. There's a strange irony in our generation. We have more freedom than ever before, yet most men live like prisoners, trapped in cycles of distraction, driven by the invisible hand of public opinion. We've mistaken movement for progress and noise for significance. We believe we're choosing our own paths, but most of us are just walking roads paved by someone else's vision. The modern man wakes up with a plan, but before breakfast, his focus has already been hijacked. Notifications, headlines, opinions, each one pulling him in a new direction. And by the end of the day, he's exhausted, but not fulfilled. He's been busy, but not effective. Connected, but not present. It's not that he doesn't want meaning. It's that the crowd has convinced him meaning comes from being seen. You felt it too, haven't you? That quiet panic when you realize you've been reacting instead of creating. That gnawing sense that everyone else seems to know what they're doing, while you're just trying to stay afloat. You tell yourself it's temporary, that once you catch up, things will feel different. But that's the trap. You never catch up to a crowd that's always running in circles. In ancient China, the philosopher Lao Tzu taught that when you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. It sounds too simple for today's world, doesn't it? But that's the paradox. Truth hasn't changed. Only our distractions have multiplied. Lao Tzu wasn't saying don't strive. He was saying don't lose yourself while striving. Because relevance built on imitation is fragile, but relevance born from authenticity is eternal. Let's translate that to today's terms. Imagine two men building brands online. One studies every trend, every algorithm, every viral formula. He copies what works and polishes his image until it gleams. The other, he shares what he truly believes, slowly, consistently, without forcing it. For a while, the first man seems to win. He grows faster, gets more engagement. But give it time, trends shift, algorithms change, and he's left chasing again. Meanwhile, the second man remains. He's not just relevant, he's real. And in a world built on filters, authenticity is gold. This is the heart of the lesson. Relevance isn't about adapting to trends. It's about aligning with truth. Technology will evolve, cultures will change, but integrity never expires. The man who knows what he stands for can walk through chaos without losing his direction. He's not rigid, he adapts, but his foundation is unshakable. The crowd moves like waves. He stands like a rock beneath them. So how do you build that kind of inner foundation? Start by getting brutally honest with yourself. What are you chasing and why? Are you pursuing mastery or attention? Are you building something meaningful or something marketable? When your motives are external, you'll always feel unstable because the external world changes without warning. But when your motives are internal, rooted in values, purpose, and discipline, you can adapt without losing yourself. Try this. Spend 10 minutes every morning in silence before you touch your phone. No input, no scrolling, no planning. Just sit and ask yourself one question. What matters today? Not what's trending, not what others expect. What matters to you? That one question, asked daily, can change the trajectory of your life. Because relevance doesn't come from reacting fast. It comes from acting with intention. Think of the samurai sharpening his sword. He doesn't rush the process because haste dulls precision. Every movement has purpose. Every action flows from discipline. That's how you must approach your life. Sharpen your mind, refine your focus, cut away the unnecessary. The crowd moves impulsively. The warrior moves deliberately. And in the long run, discipline outlasts chaos. But let's be honest, walking your own path is lonely at first. You'll feel misunderstood. You'll question your decisions. You'll be tempted to rejoin the crowd just for comfort. But growth begins in solitude. When you stop following, you start hearing. When you stop comparing, you start creating. The noise fades, and what remains is clarity, the rarest currency in our distracted age. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." Most men never evolve because they're too busy proving instead of improving. But when you stop chasing external approval, you free yourself to actually learn, to adapt, to grow, not to impress, but to become. That's how you stay relevant, by staying a student, even when others pretend to be masters. Remember this, your relevance is not a race. It's a rhythm. You don't have to move faster than others. You just have to move in harmony with your purpose. The crowd will scream for your attention, but you don't owe it to them. You owe it to yourself to build something timeless, something that can't be measured in likes or views. The world doesn't need another echo, it needs a voice. Your voice. So as the music swells and this chapter closes, take this truth with you. Crowd changes direction with the wind, but the man of purpose walks steady through the storm. You will be mocked, doubted, even ignored. But one day, the same crowd that overlooked you will ask how you stayed grounded while they lost their way. And you'll know the answer: you stopped following. You started living. Every era has its test. For the men of the past, it was survival. For the men of today, it's attention. Our ancestors fought nature and hunger. We fight noise and numbness. The danger now isn't that we'll die unknown. It's that we'll live unnoticed, even by ourselves. Look around. The world rewards conformity more than ever. Platforms measure your worth in numbers. Corporations profit from your distraction. Trends change every week, and if you don't adapt instantly, you're labeled irrelevant. So men chase it endlessly. They follow the newest voices, adopt the latest phrases, mimic the current high-value lifestyle. And the more they chase relevance, the further they drift from authenticity. You've probably felt that hollow ache, that quiet sense of being busy but not fulfilled, productive but not progressing. You post, you hustle, you adapt, but still feel unseen. Because deep down, you're not chasing meaning anymore, you're chasing momentum. The world taught you to sprint without asking where you're going. But a man without direction doesn't move, he drifts. In ancient Greece, Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." Change is inevitable, he reminds us, but confusion is optional. The river of life moves with or without you. The question is, are you flowing with awareness or being dragged by the current of the crowd? Modern relevance isn't about speed. It's about discernment. Everyone is moving fast, but few are moving with purpose. The crowd runs toward the loudest noise. The wise man listens for what is real. The crowd reacts. The wise man reflects. The crowd mimics trends. The wise man anticipates truth. If you want to stay relevant, learn to think slowly in a world that moves too fast. Let's be honest, it's hard. Every platform, every notification is engineered to hijack your focus. The world doesn't want you grounded. It wants you distracted. Because a distracted man is a compliant man, easy to manipulate, easy to sell to, easy to forget. That's why following the crowd feels comfortable. It demands nothing but your attention. But leadership, mastery, relevance, those demand solitude, silence, self-awareness. To reclaim your relevance, you must learn to protect your inner signal from the outer noise. Think of yourself as a frequency, a unique sound in a chaotic world. Every time you follow a trend you don't believe in, you distort that signal. Every time you say yes when your gut says no, you lose clarity. And over time, you forget your original tone. The goal is not to be louder than the crowd. It's to be clearer. So how do you start? Practice strategic withdrawal. Once a week, go completely offline. No notifications, no input, no noise. Use that space to reflect, to plan, to reconnect with what matters. It's not about rejecting technology. It's about mastering it. You can't be relevant in a digital age if you're enslaved by digital impulses. You must learn to use the tools without letting them use you. Here's a thought experiment. If every social platform disappeared tomorrow, would your work still matter? Would your purpose still stand? If the answer is no, then you're not building relevance, you're borrowing it. True relevance transcends platforms. It's rooted in principles, not platforms, in value, not virality. That's what ancient wisdom teaches, not resistance to change, but resilience through it. The Stoics thrived in uncertainty by focusing on what they could control, their character, their choices, their mindset. You can do the same. You can't control the crowd, but you can control your response to it. You can't predict every shift, but you can prepare by mastering yourself. In a world of noise, self-command is the ultimate advantage. Take this exercise into your next week. Identify one area of your life where you've been following the crowd, maybe your career path, your habits, even your beliefs. Ask yourself, do I truly want this, or have I been conditioned to want it? If the answer shakes you, good. That's your compass waking up. Relevance begins when you start asking better questions. It's okay to be misunderstood for a while. Every man who ever built something original had to endure that. The early stages of walking your own path feel lonely, but that's just the silence before clarity. Soon, that silence becomes strength. The The crowd is loud because it's insecure. The man who's aligned doesn't need to shout, his presence speaks for him. Musashi, the great samurai, once wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye." He was describing a kind of intuition born from mastery, the ability to sense truth beyond surface noise. That's the skill modern men need most. To see beyond the feed, to hear beyond the hype, to sense when something is real and when it's just another distraction. When you start trusting that inner sense, something powerful happens. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop chasing relevance and start embodying it. Because relevance is not about being current, it's about being consistent with your essence. The man who knows who he is will always adapt without losing himself. So let the crowd run in circles. Let the world scream for attention. You walk your path. Learn, grow, adapt, but never imitate. The future belongs to those who are calm in chaos, clear in confusion, and consistent in character. That's how you stay relevant when the world forgets itself. As the music swells, take a breath. Feel the silence beneath the noise. Because that's where you live, where you lead, where you become. To stay relevant, stop following the crowd and start listening to the sound of your own becoming. There's a moment every man faces when he realizes that the crowd he's been following isn't going anywhere. It's a hard truth to swallow. You spend years trying to fit in, to be accepted, to be seen, and then one day, you wake up and see that all the chasing has led you in a circle. Everyone's moving fast, but no one's arriving. That's when something inside you starts to whisper, there has to be more than this. That whisper is your awakening. Most men silence it. They drown it with work, entertainment, noise. Because to listen means to face the uncomfortable truth. You've been living someone else's definition of success. You've been following a script written by the masses, edited by fear, and distributed through screens. You've traded your originality for approval. And in that trade, you lost the one thing that could make you truly relevant, your individuality. The modern world doesn't reward authenticity at first. It rewards conformity, cleverness, and noise. The loudest voices rise fastest. The deepest ones rise slowest. But the loudest also fade the fastest. It's a cycle. Trend, peak, repeat. The crowd doesn't care who you are. It only cares how well you perform the part. And every time you play along, you drift further from yourself. You start wearing masks so often that you forget what your real face looks like. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable." Unconquerable, not because the world is kind, but because the mind refuses to bend to it. Seneca wasn't talking about arrogance. He was talking about inner freedom. The man who controls his mind controls his relevance. The man who needs the crowd's approval has already lost it. In our time, this unconquerable mind looks like independence, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. It's the courage to think for yourself, to trust your instincts, to stand your ground even when everyone else sways with a trend. Independence doesn't mean isolation. It means integrity. It's choosing to stay aligned with your principles, even when the crowd moves the other way. But here's the cost. Independence demands solitude. Not the romantic kind, but the gritty kind. The kind where you face your doubts, your fears, your uncertainty. The kind where you question everything you've been told. It's uncomfortable. It's lonely. But that's where truth is forged. Every man who ever became relevant in a lasting way, artists, warriors, inventors, thinkers, they all walked that road. Alone first. Understood later. To become that kind of man, you need to build what I call the still point. It's the inner ground you return to when everything outside is chaos. It's built from discipline, purpose, and reflection. It's where you make decisions that aren't driven by emotion or trends. Without it, you're tossed around by the opinions of others. With it, you move from reaction to intention. Try this exercise. Once a day, before reacting to anything, pause for 5 seconds. Whether it's a message, an argument, a temptation, just breathe and count to 5. In that pause, you reclaim your power. You move from the crowd's rhythm to your own. Over time, those small pauses create space. The space to think, to choose, to live deliberately. That's how an unconquerable mind is built, not in grand gestures, but in silent discipline. In Japan, there's a concept called the space between things. It's the silence that gives music its rhythm, the pause that gives speech its meaning, the emptiness that gives form its beauty. Modern men have forgotten the value of ma. We fill every gap with noise, every silence with stimulation. But relevance is found in the space between thought and action, between noise and clarity, between following and leading. Because when you slow down, you see clearly. You start noticing what truly matters and what doesn't. You begin to filter out the unnecessary, the opinions, the comparisons, the distractions. And suddenly, your path becomes visible again. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who do I want to become?" That shift changes everything. The crowd seeks trends. The wise man seeks transformation. Trends make you notice for a moment. Transformation makes you remembered forever. Relevance built on trends fades with time, but relevance built on transformation grows stronger with every season. You stay relevant not by chasing change, but by embodying it. So when you feel pressure to conform, remember, you don't owe the world your imitation. You owe it your originality. The man who copies what's popular will always be temporary. The man who creates from conviction becomes timeless. Don't fear being different, fear being replaceable. The crowd produces copies. Your courage produces legacy. And when that old fear returns, the fear of being unseen, remind yourself, you're not invisible, you're incubating. Every great movement, every great idea, every great man starts in the shadows. That's where relevance is born, not in the spotlight, but in silence. Stay there long enough, and when you emerge, you won't need to follow anyone. The world will follow you. As the music rises, picture this: a single man standing still while the crowd rushes by. He's not resisting, he's choosing. He's calm, grounded, deliberate. That's the image of power in the modern world. That's you when you stop following the crowd. Relevance isn't about being everywhere. It's about being irreplaceable. And that begins the moment you decide to stop blending in and start becoming yourself. Every man comes to a crossroads, the moment when he must decide whether to keep running with a crowd or walk alone into the unknown. Most never cross it. They stay in the comfort of company, mistaking noise for purpose and busyness for progress. But a rare few, choose the harder road. The one that feels uncertain, even isolating. And though that path starts in silence, it always ends in legacy. The truth is, following the crowd feels safe because it hides your fear. When you move with everyone else, you don't have to face your own uncertainty. You can always say, "I was just doing what everyone else did." But that safety has a cost. It buries your individuality. It dulls your edges. It turns your potential into compliance. You become another name lost in the stream, another reflection in the mirror maze of modern life. We live in a time where blending in is easy and standing out is punished. The world wants efficiency, not depth. Image, not integrity. It wants you to follow the system, buy the product, share the trend, and keep the machine running. But relevance, true, lasting relevance, doesn't come from pleasing the system. It comes from questioning it. From building something the crowd didn't even know it needed. In the words of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Even 2,000 years ago, he understood that crowds rarely lead to clarity. They lead to confusion, to compromise, to mediocrity dressed as meaning. His wisdom still applies today, maybe more than ever. Because now the crowd isn't just around you, it's inside your pocket, buzzing every few seconds. Modern relevance demands a kind of warrior spirit, not aggression, but awareness. You must train your mind like a blade. Sharpen it through reflection, discipline, and solitude. The goal isn't to fight the crowd, but to see through it. To understand it, rise above it, and then choose your own way. You don't reject the world, you outgrow it. Let's reframe it. To stay relevant, stop following the crowd doesn't mean isolate yourself or reject progress. It means stop outsourcing your thinking. Stop living secondhand lives. It means staying rooted in principle while remaining open to evolution. Relevance is not rebellion for the sake of ego. It's alignment with truth, even when it's unpopular. It's the courage to walk your path when no one else understands it yet. Here's what this looks like in practice. You start small. You make decisions based on clarity, not convenience. You say no when everyone else says yes, because you know your direction. You measure success by inner peace, not outer applause. You build habits that outlast hype. You learn to enjoy the silence, because that's where your creativity refuels. Slowly, the noise of the crowd fades, and in its place, something else emerges: presence, power, purpose. Your exercise for this final chapter is simple but demanding. Define your personal code. 3 rules you'll live by, no matter what the world does. They could be as simple as speak truth, even when it costs me, or move slow but never stop. Write them down. Repeat them daily. This is your armor against conformity. Because in a world that changes every minute, your code is the one thing that keeps you whole. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai, wrote in the Book of 5 Rings, "The ultimate aim of martial arts is not having to use them." The same applies here. The goal of resisting the crowd isn't rebellion, it's mastery. The man who has mastered himself doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't chase relevance because he is relevant. Through his discipline, his clarity, his integrity, he becomes the still center in a spinning world. And here's the paradox. Once you stop trying to stay relevant, you become timeless. Because trends are temporary, but truth isn't. The crowd forgets easily, but the man who stands on principle endures. He might not always be popular, but he will always be respected. His relevance doesn't depend on attention, it depends on alignment. And that's something no algorithm can replicate. So if you've been chasing the crowd, if you've been molding yourself to fit in, take this as your reminder: the world doesn't need another echo. It needs your voice, the one forged by struggle, doubt, and resilience. The one that carries conviction instead of imitation. The one that doesn't change tone just because the room gets louder. Because relevance isn't about how many people hear you, it's about what happens when they do. When you speak from truth, even a whisper carries farther than 1,000 shouts. And when you live from purpose, even your silence speaks. So let the crowd rush by. Let them chase the next thing. You stay here, grounded, focused, building, creating. Because while they're busy following, you'll be becoming. And when your moment comes, when your work finally meets the world, they'll call you an overnight success. But you'll know the truth: you were never following. You were preparing. You were building something that lasts beyond the noise, beyond the trends, beyond time itself. As the music swells and the story closes, remember this: relevance is not found in being seen. It's found in being true. And the man who dares to walk his own path, even when the crowd laughs, doubts, or forgets, is already ahead. Because to stay relevant, you must first stop following the crowd and start leading yourself. In the end, every man must choose to be an echo of the world or the architect of his own. The crowd will always promise comfort, but only the path of individuality leads to freedom. The ones who stop following don't fall behind, they rise above. So when the noise grows louder and the pressure to conform feels stronger, take a breath, remember your code, and walk your path. Quietly, purposefully. Because the future doesn't belong to those who fit in. It belongs to those who stand out, not by shouting louder, but by staying true when everyone else forgets who they are.